My name is Lauren Mitchell, and I'm 27 years old. On paper, my life is the kind that makes landlords lean back in their chairs and say, "You're exactly the kind of tenant we like," and makes bank loan officers relax their shoulders just a little. I work in IT support for a mid-sized company. My days are tickets, password resets, and people swearing, "I didn't change anything," while I quietly reverse whatever they did change. I don't chase adrenaline. I chase stability, uptime, quiet. My apartment matches that energy. It's a one-bedroom in an older building. Not fancy, not trendy, no rooftop pool or resident lounge with neon signs. But it's clean, functional, close to work, and, this part matters, it's mine. The lease is in my name. The furniture is mine. The chipped mugs in my cabinet sit beside a color-coded budget binder that knows exactly when every bill is due and how badly my stomach will twist if my credit score ever drops below 780. By most people's standards, my life is boring. To me, boring is safe. For a while, I thought my love life matched that same sensible, responsible calm. I'd been dating Liam Carter, 25, for about 8 months. We met on a dating app. He had an easy smile, messy, dark hair, and that effortless charisma that photographs well. His profile said he worked in fashion and content, which is a fancy way of saying he worked part-time at a boutique clothing store and spent the rest of his time trying to become an influencer. He made maybe 20 grand a year. He lived with 3 roommates in a slightly bigger place across town that, frankly, wasn't much nicer than mine, just louder. From day one, I was the one covering most of our dates. Dinners, movies, concerts, random, "we should try that place" nights. My card usually hit the table first. It wasn't like he never paid, but the pattern was obvious. If I didn't reach for the bill, it lingered in the middle like a bomb neither of us wanted to touch. I made decent money, around $65,000 a year. Not rich, but enough that dinner for 2 at a mid-range restaurant didn't send my budget into cardiac arrest. And every time I paid, he'd kiss my cheek and say something like, "You're such a grown-up, I love it." Like responsibility was a quirky little personality trait. On top of that, I covered his Ubers to and from my place. He hated driving in my neighborhood. "Parking is a nightmare," he'd complain. "And the meters? Honestly, I might get towed by just looking at them." The first few times, I sent him money without thinking. $30, $40 here or there. It felt generous, adult. That's what partners do, right? They help each other. And then, the comments started. Little ones at first. "Don't you ever get tired of this neighborhood? It's kind of basic." Or, "This building looks sketchy from the outside. You really trust that elevator?" Or, said with a laugh, "We should upgrade you to something more you. Modern, aesthetic, something that fits your vibe." The first time he called my building basic, he laughed and kissed me after, so I laughed too. I told myself he just had different taste. He followed a lot of accounts that posted minimalist lofts with floor-to-ceiling windows and plants that never seemed to wilt. Maybe my slightly crooked kitchen cabinets really did hurt his aesthetic feelings. Then the comments got sharper. "Don't you think it's time to upgrade? You're doing well at work. You deserve better than this. This hallway lighting is tragic. No way I'm taking any mirror selfies here. This neighborhood, it's so mid. Like, I can't even tag it without killing engagement." It stung more than I wanted to admit. I'd worked hard for this place, saved for the deposit, run the numbers 100 times before signing the lease. My apartment wasn't a Pinterest board fantasy, but it was mine. No roommates, no chaos. 2 weeks before everything exploded, we planned a double date. Liam wanted to introduce me to his friend Jenna and Jenna's boyfriend. The plan was simple. They'd come over to my place first, we'd hang out, then head to a restaurant downtown. The day of, my phone buzzed. Liam: "Hey, can we do dinner somewhere else instead of your place? I don't want to bring my friends there. Your apartment is kind of embarrassing." I stared at the screen for a long time. Embarrassing. My perfectly adequate, clean, paid-for apartment that I lived in alone. The apartment whose rent I never asked him to help with, even though he spent more nights here than at his own place. The apartment I was apparently good enough to sleep in with him, but not good enough for him to show his friends. Something went very, very still inside me. I typed, deleted, retyped. For a second, I imagined sending a paragraph about how disrespectful that was, how insulting, how cruel. Instead, I took a breath and let the quiet spreadsheet part of my brain answer for me. Me, Fair enough. Let's just meet at the restaurant then. A minute later, Liam, perfect. Can you send me Uber money? It's surge pricing. There it was. The expectation. My fingers hovered over my banking app, muscle memory ready to comply. Then the other part of me, the part that had started planning for retirement at 22, finally spoke up. Me. Actually, I think you should start handling your own transportation from now on. See you at 7. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. 20 minutes of silence, then, Liam. What, are you serious right now? Me. Very. If my place embarrasses you, we should probably reevaluate our financial arrangements too. Liam. I'll just take the bus then. This is ridiculous. Me. Sounds good. The restaurant is downtown. The bus stop is 2 blocks from your place. He didn't respond. I got to the restaurant 5 minutes early, ordered water, checked my phone twice. At 7:25, Liam walked in, hair slightly frizzed from the drizzle outside, cheeks pink with cold. He looked around like he was hoping no one had noticed he'd arrived alone. Jenna and her boyfriend were already there, waving from a corner table. Hey, Jenna smiled, then glanced between us. Everything okay? Traffic bad? Bus was late, Liam muttered, sliding into the seat beside me. He didn't look at me when he said it. I caught Jenna's boyfriend's eye. He raised an eyebrow, the universal man signal for, want me to pretend I didn't hear that? Dinner was fine, on the surface. Jenna was sweet, chatty, full of stories about work and their dog. Her boyfriend was easygoing. But underneath the small talk, Liam radiated annoyance. Every time the conversation drifted toward travel or nice restaurants, he'd make a little show of sighing and glancing at me, like I was the one who had forced him to arrive on public transit in the rain. When the check finally came, the server set it in the middle of the table. For months, I had reflexively reached for the bill without thinking. This time, I let my hand stay wrapped around my glass. Jenna's boyfriend reached out first, tipping the leather folder open. We can just split it down the middle if you want, he offered. Actually, I said lightly, I'll cover mine. You two cover yours. Makes it easier. There was a beat of silence. Yeah, no worries, Jenna's boyfriend said quickly. He pulled out his card and placed it on top of the bill. I slid mine next to it. Liam just stared. Babe, he said under his breath, like we were in the middle of a magic trick and I'd forgotten my cue. I looked at him. What? He blinked at the bill. I didn't bring my card. His voice was a whisper, but not quiet enough. Jenna heard. So did her boyfriend. There's an ATM across the street, I said, taking a sip of water. My heart was hammering, but my voice surprised me with how steady it sounded. We can wait. Jenna's smile wobbled. Oh, it's okay, we can... No, I cut in gently, eyes still on Liam. It's really no problem. We can wait. Liam's jaw tightened. For a second, I thought he might actually get up and go. Instead, he leaned back in his chair like someone had just insulted him in public. It's fine, Jenna said quickly, reaching for her purse. I'll just put his on mine. We'll figure it out later. The look Liam gave me could have melted steel. On the walk home, my phone buzzed with a Venmo request from Jenna for exactly Liam's portion. I paid it without comment. The notification sat there like a receipt for the humiliation he thought he'd hand me, only to wear himself. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've stuck to my new rules like they were written into a contract. No more Uber money. Every bill split. Every forgot my wallet moment met with, we can wait while you go get it, or there's an ATM nearby. The texts I've gotten from Liam have been something. You're being petty. This is financial abuse. I was just being honest about your apartment. You're punishing me for my standards. Yesterday, he finally said it. Liam, we need to talk. We're meeting tomorrow. If you'd asked me then what I thought would happen, I'd have said the worst-case scenario was a messy breakup and a deleted photo dump on Instagram. I had no idea that calling my own apartment good enough and asking a grown man to pay for his own bus fare would be the first domino in a line that ended with police reports, court dates, and a judge saying Liam's full name out loud while he stood in front of her in handcuffs. But that part came later. Tomorrow, I'm just going to a coffee shop to talk to my boyfriend. At least, that's what I thought. Liam was 20 minutes late to the coffee shop. I'd picked a place near his bus line so he couldn't complain about the walk. I got there 5 minutes early, ordered a small latte, and found a corner table near the window. By the time he walked in, my drink was half gone, and my patience was running close to zero. He pushed through the door like someone entering a courtroom instead of a cafe. Chin up, shoulders tight, eyes already scanning for me with a mix of irritation and something almost theatrical. There you are, he said, like I was the one who was late. I glanced at the clock. Our plan was noon. It's 12:20. He rolled his eyes and dropped into the chair across from me. The bus was packed, and it started raining again. I had to walk 3 blocks in this. He gestured to his clothes like the weather had personally attacked his outfit. You could have left earlier, I said, taking another sip. He stared at my cup, then at the line, then back to me. You didn't get me anything? They give water for free, I said. You can ask at the counter. His jaw twitched. He went to the counter and came back with a clear plastic cup of water, straw already chewed. He sat down like a man preparing his opening argument. This is insane, he said, not even easing into it. You know that, right? I folded my hands on the table. What is? You're punishing me for being honest, he snapped. I told you how I felt about your apartment. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was trying to help you level up, and now you're making me take the bus and pay for everything like I'm some random guy. You're my boyfriend, I said quietly, which means you're also a random adult. Adults pay for their own transportation, especially when they call someone's home embarrassing. He scoffed. I didn't say you were embarrassing. I said your apartment was. There's a difference. No, Liam, I said, there really isn't. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. You know how it looks when I tell people I'm dating an IT girl who still lives in a basic building in a basic neighborhood with no amenities? It doesn't match my brand, okay? People expect my life to look a certain way. There it was, his brand. I stared at him. You realize your brand doesn't pay your rent, right? He flushed. Wow, that's low even for you. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Low as you texting me that my apartment is embarrassing when I've been paying for most of our dates and your Ubers for 8 months. Low is acting like you're doing me a favor by gracing my basic building with your presence. His eyes flashed. What arrangement? You're my girlfriend. You're supposed to take care of me. That stopped me. Take care of you? I repeated. You're 25, Liam, not 5. A part-time job. He cut in, like he was reading from a script he'd practiced. Because I'm focusing on my content. You know this. I told you from day one, my influencer career is my priority. Investing in me is an investment in us. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. You have 1,800 followers, and the only brand that's paid you in the last month is a teeth whitening kit that gave you $50 and a discount code. His face went blotchy. You're being condescending. I'm being realistic, I said. I can't afford to subsidize your influencer career while you tear down my living situation. He stared at me, breathing hard, then fired his next shot. Gabby never made me pay for anything. My stomach dipped. Who? I asked, even though I knew. Gabby, he repeated. My ex. The one you've been so insecure about. The one he'd told me was toxic and controlling and obsessed with status. The one he'd described as a gold digger with a 2-bedroom condo in a trendy building she cared more about than him. Interesting, I said softly, because the way you talked about her, I thought she was the villain. She had standards, he said, like that settled it. She understood that if you're dating someone, you provide for them. I never had to touch my wallet with her, ever. Then maybe, I said, my voice going very, very calm, you should date Gabby again. His mouth dropped open. Wow, so that's how it is. I'm not going to keep paying for everything, I said. I'm not going to bankroll your lifestyle while you tell people my place is beneath you. He shook his head, anger sharpening his features. You're twisting this. You're punishing me because I was honest. I just want better for you, for us. I don't want to bring my friends to a place that looks like a starter apartment. I want a woman who's not afraid to upgrade. What you want, I said, is a woman who will pay for your upgrades. His voice shot up a notch. Don't do that therapist thing with me, Lauren. You're always analyzing everything. Around us, people started to glance over. A barista paused mid-wipe on the counter. I'm not punishing you, I said, keeping my tone low. I'm adjusting. You said my home embarrasses you. I heard you. We're meeting in public now. You can handle your own transportation. It's simple. Simple? His voice cracked on the word. You're making me take the bus in the rain and pay for my own dinner like an adult, I offered. His eyes filled with sudden, furious tears. You're abusive, he whispered. You know that? You're financially abusive. You dangled this lifestyle in front of me and then ripped it away the second I wasn't your little grateful charity case anymore. I blinked. What lifestyle? The lifestyle where I live in a 1-bedroom and have a 401k? I never pretended to be rich, Liam. He slammed his palm on the table. The water in his plastic cup sloshed, a few drops spilling onto the wood. Heads turned. You love-bombed me, he said loudly. You took me to nice places, paid for everything, and now you're punishing me for expecting that to continue. That's manipulation, Lauren. I felt heat crawl up my neck as people openly started watching now. This isn't going anywhere, I said, pushing my chair back. I'm not going to sit here and be called abusive because I won't buy your bus fare. He shot to his feet. You can't just leave. We're having a conversation. No, I said, slinging my bag over my shoulder. You're having a tantrum. His face twisted. Wow, you really don't care about me at all. I took a breath and let the truth land between us. I care about myself more than I care about funding your delusions, I said. We're done, Liam. He made a strangled sound as I walked past him. Behind me, I heard, "Don't walk away from me, Lauren," and the scrape of his chair, but he didn't follow me out the door. Maybe he was smart enough to realize that chasing me onto the sidewalk screaming would look worse on video than sitting in a coffee shop crying into his free water. By the time I got home, my phone had lit up like a slot machine. 8 missed calls, dozens of texts. You're heartless. You're throwing away something special. You're going to regret this. You can't treat people like this and expect good karma. You are a calculator, not a person. I put my phone face down on the counter. It buzzed and buzzed and buzzed. I didn't pick it up until the notifications finally went quiet. When I did, there were 63 texts. The last one read, "Fine. You want to be like this. Don't be shocked when people find out who you really are. I'm done protecting your image." A cold, familiar feeling settled in my stomach. The same feeling I got at work when I saw a corrupted file and realized the backup hadn't run properly. Uh-oh. I went to Instagram. At the top of my screen, there it was. A notification that I'd been tagged in a new post from Liam's account. I tapped it. My face stared back at me from a photo he'd taken months ago when we'd gone to a rooftop bar for my birthday. I was laughing, head tilted back, city lights behind me. He'd said I looked like I belonged in a movie. Now the caption began with, "Ladies, let this be a warning." The rest of it read like a bad script. He called me a broke girl pretending to be stable, said I'd love-bombed him with expensive dinners and dates only to turn financially abusive when he gave me constructive criticism about my living situation. He wrote that I'd forced him to take public transportation in the rain, refused to pay for his dinner in front of his friends, and humiliated him for being honest. He called me a narcissist, twice. He ended it with, "Know your worth, queens. Don't let broke partners drag you down because they're embarrassed to level up." The comments section was a war zone. A few of his friends rushed in first. "Ugh, men like this make me sick. Drop his we'll deal with him. You deserve a king, not a calculator." Then others chimed in, more cautious. "Wait, didn't she take you to that fancy place for your birthday? Weren't you bragging about how she spoiled you?" I'm confused. I thought she paid for most things. One comment from someone I didn't know made my stomach flip. "Girl, didn't you say last month he took you to that $200 dinner for your birthday?" 3 minutes later, that comment disappeared. So did the account that posted it. Blocked, I guessed. I stared at the screen and felt something strange happen. The first wave was humiliation. My face, my story, my relationship being chewed up in a ring of strangers. But underneath that, there was this thin thread of relief. He was showing people exactly who he was. The image he'd curated, soft boy with high standards, just looking for someone to match his vision, was cracking, and he was doing the damage himself. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Instead, I swiped to answer. "Hello? Is this Lauren Mitchell?" a woman's voice demanded. "Yes. I'm calling about your treatment of my son." I closed my eyes. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes. This is Liam's mother," she said, like she was announcing a title. "I saw his post, and I've been on the phone with him for the last hour. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. I raised him to expect better than this." "I'm sure you did," I said, my voice going flat. "What exactly are you calling about?" "He tells me you've cut him off financially and are making him take the bus like some kind of..." She paused, searching for a word. "Person who takes the bus." "The word you're looking for is adult," I said. She made a sharp, offended sound. "When a woman dates my son, she should be prepared to provide for him. That's what a real partner does. You knew his situation. You knew he was focused on building his career. You don't just pull support like that without warning." I had to pull the phone away from my ear and stare at it for a second, just to confirm this was real and not a hallucination. "Ma'am," I said slowly, "your son called my home embarrassing and refused to bring his friends there. Why would I continue paying for someone who's ashamed of me?" "He was trying to help you improve," she snapped. "Sometimes honesty hurts. He was encouraging you to aim higher. You're clearly not mature enough for a serious relationship." "You might be right," I said. "If mature means paying for a grown man's Ubers and dinners while he trashes my apartment online, I'm definitely not mature enough." Her voice went icy. You will regret this. You think you can just toss him aside? You have no idea what you've lost. I think we're done here, I said. Have a nice day. I hung up before she could answer. For a long minute, I just stood in my kitchen, listening to the silence. No TV, no music, just the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of a neighbor's footsteps overhead. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was a notification from Facebook. A message request. From Nathan, Liam's roommate. I opened it. Hey, Lauren. Sorry to bother you, but did you and Liam break up? He's been screaming at us to lend him Uber money to go to your place and make you see sense. We're all kind of freaked out. Also, he hasn't paid his portion of utilities in 2 months and keeps saying you were supposed to help him with that. Just wanted to check what's actually going on. I stared at the screen. There it was again, that weird blend of nausea and relief. On one hand, my private mess was leaking into other people's lives. On the other, I wasn't crazy. This wasn't just me being petty or abusive. This was a pattern. Me. We're broken up. I never agreed to pay his utilities. If he shows up at my place, I'm calling the cops. You might want to find a new roommate. 3 dots appeared. Nathan. Already looking. Sorry this happened. For what it's worth, your apartment seemed totally normal when I saw it. Not embarrassing at all. I exhaled, shoulders relaxing a fraction. After I put my phone down, I walked through my 1 bedroom in slow circles. The hand-me-down couch, the thrifted coffee table I'd sanded and stained myself, the chipped mugs lined up like soldiers next to my budget binder. Nothing about it had changed. The only thing that had shifted was the story someone else was trying to tell about it, and about me. My embarrassing apartment felt different that night. Not glamorous, not upgraded, but once I locked the door and set my phone face down, it was exactly what I needed it to be. Quiet. Mine. And, for the first time since Liam had called it basic, it felt like something else too. Worth protecting. I thought the worst was over. A breakup, a messy post, a phone call from his mother, a roommate looking for a new place. I thought the story ended there. I was wrong. It was only the end of the first chapter. 2 weeks went by. 2 quiet, uneventful, deceptively peaceful weeks. I went to work, came home, cooked simple dinners, and rediscovered the strange, meditative rhythm of living alone. The first few days, I jumped every time my phone buzzed, but after a while, I stopped checking for his name. The silence held steady, and I started to believe maybe, just maybe, it was finally over. Then, on a Wednesday, around lunch, my desk phone rang. Lauren, there's someone in the lobby asking for you, the receptionist said. He says it's urgent. Liam Carter? My stomach dropped. I forced my voice to stay even. Did he say what it's about? No, just that it's personal. I closed my laptop. Tell security I'll be right down. When I stepped off the elevator, I saw him immediately. He was dressed like he was headed to a brunch photo shoot instead of standing in a corporate lobby. Black slacks, fitted shirt, gold watch that looked suspiciously fake. In one hand, he held a Starbucks cup. In the other, his phone, angled like he might start recording at any moment. Lauren, he said, smiling too brightly. Finally. I crossed my arms. What are you doing here? He blinked, as if the question offended him. We need to talk. No, we don't, I said. Please leave. Stop being dramatic, he said, lowering his voice like we were an old married couple. I forgive you for overreacting. I almost laughed. You forgive me? He nodded. Yeah, I realize I might have been a little harsh about your apartment. It's not that embarrassing. It's got vintage charm, and I'm willing to compromise. Compromise, I repeated flatly. Yes, you can keep living there for now. But we should set a timeline for when you'll upgrade, like, say, within the year? That way, when we move in together, we're already on the same page about standards. I stared at him. I could feel the security guard behind the desk shifting his weight, clearly trying not to laugh. Liam, I said quietly, we're broken up. He tilted his head. Smile, it's still frozen. Don't say that. It's true, we broke up 2 weeks ago. You've called me abusive, your mom's harassed me, and you posted about me online. He frowned. That was before I realized you were just scared. You don't mean to hurt me. You just don't understand what real relationships require. Security, I said, not looking away from him. The guard stepped forward immediately. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Liam's smile cracked. This is insane. You can't just... Liam, I said, you need to go. He reached for his phone. I'm documenting this harassment. The guard's tone sharpened. Sir, you can't film here. This is private property. Please put your phone away. This is public interest, Liam snapped, but the guard moved closer, and something in Liam's posture shifted, his bravado thinning. He turned back to me, eyes glittering with anger. You'll regret this. When I'm famous, you'll wish you treated me better. I'll take my chances, I said. He lingered just long enough for the silence to sting, then turned sharply and walked out, muttering about small-minded people. The guard exhaled and looked at me. You want me to call the cops? Not yet, I said. But maybe keep a note of this. I went back upstairs, shaking slightly, pretending to dive into work while my thoughts spun. By the time I got home that evening, my phone was ringing again. This time, my landlord. Hey, Lauren, weird question. Did you authorize someone named Liam Carter to inquire about upgrading your apartment? My heart thudded. What? He called the office earlier today, said he was your fiancé, asked about moving you into a 2-bedroom unit next month, wanted to know if he could be listed as the primary resident for his business purposes. I pressed my fingers against my temple. Absolutely not. We're not together. Please note in my file that he has no authority to act on my behalf. Already did, the landlord said. My assistant thought it was odd when he asked if we'd hold a unit just for content filming. Don't worry, we shut it down. Thank you, I said, my voice tight. After I hung up, I poured a glass of water and stared out my window. The street lights flickered over the wet pavement. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. Something had shifted. The next morning, I woke up to 3 emails from credit card companies I didn't have accounts with. Subject: We received your credit application. I hadn't applied for anything. Each one had my name, my address, and Liam's phone number listed as a contact. My pulse roared in my ears. I spent the entire morning on the phone. Fraud departments, freezes, verifications, long holds filled with tinny music. Every rep I spoke to said the same thing. You caught it early. Good thing you flagged this. By lunch, I'd filed a police report online just to have a paper trail. Then Nathan texted, Hey, heads up. Liam's been telling everyone you two are back together and moving into a new apartment next month. He's already trying to sell his bedroom furniture. Says you're covering his rent till the lease ends. Also, he got a new credit card somehow. He's bragging about it. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Me. Thanks for telling me. I've already spoken to the police. If he shows up at your place or mine, call them immediately. Nathan replied a minute later. Will do. This guy's unhinged. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. That night, I triple-checked my locks and set my phone on the nightstand with the ringer on loud. At 8:12 the next morning, my phone buzzed again. It was Tom, my coworker and friend, the one who'd known me long before Liam. Hey, Lauren, he said. Weird question. Why is your ex at the Mercedes dealership? I blinked. What? I'm here getting my car serviced. He's at the sales desk filling out paperwork. I overheard him say something about his girlfriend wanting to surprise him, but needing him to handle the documentation. My heart slammed against my ribs. Call the police. Now. I already did, Tom said. They're on the way. I grabbed my bag and keys, adrenaline cutting through the morning fog. By the time I arrived, 2 patrol cars were parked outside. Inside, Liam sat at a desk, surrounded by paperwork, crying. Real, shaking sobs that filled the air. A salesperson stood nearby, arms crossed, jaw tight. The officer glanced at me. You Lauren Mitchell? Yes. Do you know this man? Yes, I said. He's my ex-boyfriend. Liam's head whipped up. Finally. See, officer, she's here. This is all a misunderstanding. The salesperson looked relieved. He told us his girlfriend wanted to surprise him with a car but needed him to handle the paperwork. We were just about to run her credit when your friend over there, he nodded toward Tom, intervened. The officer frowned. Sir, did you attempt to open this lease in Ms. Mitchell's name? Liam's tears hiccuped. She told me she wanted to. She said it was part of our reconciliation. That's a lie, I said quietly. We haven't spoken in weeks. The officer nodded. That's consistent with what she told us earlier. We've also confirmed the credit card he tried to use is in her name with fraudulent authorization. Liam's voice rose, cracking on every word. She set me up. She made me do this. She told me she'd help me if I proved I could handle responsibility. The officer's tone hardened. Sir, no one forced you to commit fraud. She psychologically manipulated me, he shouted. I'm traumatized. I need my emotional support person. You can call them from the station, the officer said flatly. When they cuffed him, he screamed, My mom is going to sue you, Lauren! I just stood there, pulse pounding, watching the last piece of the delusion fall apart. The salesperson turned to me as they led Liam outside. In 20 years, that's the wildest thing I've ever seen, he said, and I once had a guy try to trade in a stolen tractor. I almost laughed, but my hands were shaking too much. By the time I got home that night, the police report was officially filed, and my hands were cramped from signing forms. Liam was charged with identity theft and attempted fraud. Nathan texted later. His mom called all of us screaming about bail money. We said no. She said we'll all be sorry when Liam's career takes off. I locked my door, double-bolted it, and stood in my living room, staring at the quiet walls of my embarrassing apartment. For the first time, it didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like a crime scene I hadn't left yet. 2 weeks later. The city had already moved on. The rain washed away the headlines. The internet found new drama to devour. But my name, and Liam's, had been attached to something real. Something that left bruises you couldn't photograph. The quiet I'd fought for finally returned, but it wasn't the same. It was heavier. Stillness with edges. Liam was out on bail. His mom had paid, borrowing from relatives, according to Nathan. He'd been charged with identity theft, attempted fraud, and harassment. I'd gotten a lawyer, a calm, unflappable woman named Mara, who guided me through every step. The restraining order, the restitution claim, the credit repair process. She didn't flinch at my shaking hands when I signed the forms. "You're not overreacting," she'd said. "You're documenting." And she was right. I wasn't angry anymore. I was documenting. When the court date came, I sat in the front row, hands folded in my lap. Liam looked smaller in the courtroom light. Same perfectly styled hair, same sharp jawline, but his confidence had curdled into something brittle. The prosecutor read the charges. The evidence was airtight. Phone logs, application timestamps, IP addresses, everything traced back to him. His lawyer tried to play the sympathy card. "My client's behavior," he said, adjusting his tie, "was born out of emotional distress caused by the abrupt withdrawal of financial support from someone he believed he could depend on." The judge stared at him. "Are you suggesting your client committed fraud because his ex-girlfriend stopped paying for his Uber rides?" The lawyer cleared his throat. "When taken in context of their relationship dynamics." "That context only makes it worse," the judge said sharply. "He was not entitled to her financial support. He was not entitled to her identity." Mara leaned toward me, whispering, "She's not going to buy any of it." She didn't. Liam got probation, mandatory therapy, restitution, and a permanent no-contact order. When it was over, I walked out of the courtroom feeling lighter and older all at once. But of course, Liam's mother was waiting outside. She stormed up the steps like someone walking into a family intervention she'd decided she was leading. "I hope you're happy," she snapped. "You've ruined my son's life." I blinked. "Your son tried to steal my identity to buy a Mercedes." "He was obviously crying for help," she shot back. "You drove him to this." Mara stepped forward, her voice smooth but iron-edged. "Ma'am, please step away from my client." Mrs. Carter ignored her. "He loved you. He was trying to build a future with you." I let out a quiet laugh. "By calling my apartment embarrassing and trying to move into it under false pretenses?" "He had standards for me," she said, her voice cracking. "Standards you clearly couldn't meet." Mara gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "We're done here." As we walked away, I realized something strange. I didn't hate them. Not Liam, not his mother. What I felt was colder, like looking at an old bill that's finally been paid in full. 3 days later, Nathan messaged me again. "Hey, you want to hear something wild?" I sighed. "Does it involve Liam?" "Yeah, I've been talking to one of his old roommates. Apparently he's done this before. Multiple times." Nathan sent screenshots. Messages from a girl named Emily, who'd lived with Liam 2 years earlier. "He dated a woman who covered everything for him," Nathan wrote. Same pattern. He insulted her apartment, pressured her to upgrade, tried to add himself to her lease without permission. When she broke up with him, he opened a credit line in her name. His mom paid her off to stay quiet. There were 2 more women after that. One had let him co-sign a car loan. Another caught him applying for a phone contract using her social security number. Liam wasn't a one-time disaster. He was a pattern that kept replaying, a movie with a different lead every year. Nathan ended his message with, "We're putting together documentation in case anyone else ever needs it. Sort of like a support group for his exes." That made me laugh for the first time in weeks. "I'll send you my paperwork," I wrote back. Meanwhile, Liam's influencer career disintegrated. Someone, and I honestly don't know who, sent screenshots of his arrest record to the few brands that had ever worked with him. His follower count plummeted from 1,800 to under 400. The sponsorships disappeared. The last post on his page was a soft-lit selfie with the caption, "Sometimes we rise from the ashes of betrayal stronger than ever. Growth #healing, #truth. The comments were turned off. By the end of that month, I'd moved. Same square footage, better neighborhood, higher floor. The new place cost $50 more per month, which was easy to afford now that I wasn't subsidizing someone else's Uber habits. The first night I slept there, the silence felt strange again. Not heavy, but earned. I unpacked slowly. Books first, then the chipped mugs, then my color-coded budget binder, the quiet heart of my life. Tom helped me carry the last box in. "You sure you're okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, the peace alone is worth it." He grinned. "I told you, best $50 a month you'll ever spend." He was right. A week later, I met Nathan for coffee to hand over the documentation for the Liam Carter Recovery Support Group, as he called it. He showed up early, brought his own drink, and insisted on paying for his half. When he saw me glance at the check, he laughed. "Don't worry, I brought my card." I smiled. For the first time in months, the sound didn't feel like something cracked open. We sat by the window, two people bound by the strangest shared history. He told me he'd finally moved out of that apartment, that the new roommate actually pays utilities on time. When we stood to leave, he said, "You know, your new place, it's really nice. Not fancy, just grounded. Feels like home." I thanked him. As I walked back, my reflection in the shop window caught me off guard. I looked calm, like a woman who'd survived the storm and finally stopped waiting for thunder. Back in my new apartment, I stood by the window and looked out at the street. The lights glowed steady. Somewhere below, the city kept moving. People hurrying home, running late, living their ordinary lives. Mine was ordinary again, too. Gloriously, beautifully ordinary. No one called my home embarrassing anymore. No one asked for Uber money or insulted my walls for not being aesthetic. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't trendy. It was safe. And after everything I'd learned, that was the most luxurious thing in the world. I thought about Liam's last words to me. "You'll regret this when I'm famous." Maybe he was right in a way, because I'd never forget him. Not as a love story, but as a lesson. The kind that costs you peace for a while, but pays you back in wisdom. When someone shows you who they are, entitled, manipulative, vindictive, willing to insult you while taking your money, believe them the first time. Don't finance someone else's fantasy at the expense of your sanity. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat on my couch, and smiled at the chipped mug in my hands. My embarrassing life? From where I was sitting, it looked pretty damn beautiful.